Hello everybody and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Today we are going to be reviewing and discussing the new movie, Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Now if you're just like me and thought, well maybe is this like a darker, more horror version of Brendan Fraser's The Mummies and the beautiful sequel, the one with the Rock, and thought, oh wow, they're doing like a horror version of this seems so random and weird. Well, guys, guess what? It's not. It's not. I thought it was when it was announced. Then you start seeing the trailers and think it's just some dumb cliche horror movie. So not in that same universe, but if you have nobody to talk to about that or your confusion with that, well, guess what? You have finally found the right home at ZakIsCinema, because I was confused and now we're talking about it together and it seems so much better. So please join us here because we are going to get started and jumping into the review and discussion for this movie, starting with the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. Now, for the most part and overall, I would say that I enjoy the blend that this movie is going for. It feels like it's kind of trying to blend that classic haunted house style approach, that horror, demonic possession style of movie making, like The Exorcist, The Conjuring, The Insidious, The Grudge, The Ring, a bunch of examples, while also incorporating elements from the over-the-top chaotic brutality that is the Evil Dead style of filmmaking. I loved what Lee Cronin did with Evil Dead Rise a couple years ago, and he definitely brings a lot of that same vibe, atmosphere, and style. So I enjoyed those parts of it, and like the general execution of kind of blending those two subgenres together. It creates a interesting mix where you get this typical possession style setup, but then it's injected with that gross, almost fun, unhinged energy of the Evil Dead movies. And when I felt like it was leaning more into that, it really delivered and really worked for me. There are multiple scenes where it's just straight up gross and nasty. That's the best way I could describe it. Makes you physically kind of react or turn to the person next to you and make a weird, funny face or just laugh in disbelief. So those elements of the movie I found myself really enjoying. And for example, there's this toenail scene that alone I will be thinking of every time I clip my toenails, and I'm never going to forget that guttural reaction I had when I first saw it. It's the kind of thing that sticks with you because of how universal but specific it is. And there's tons of moments and examples like that with other gross out small details. You get skin, nails, bodily fluids. It has that Evil Dead makes you feel it kind of energy, if that makes sense. And it definitely in parts does not hold back with its gross out horror. There's a funeral sequence with the possessed daughter in the casket emptying and drinking the embalming fluid that is in their grandma. They are ripping teeth out of children and spitting blood onto food that is supposed to be served at a funeral. Grandma's body being completely disrespected by coyotes after she just got launched out of a bedroom window. There is so many chaotic, over-the-top parts that it becomes that entertaining in a twisted way. So if you kind of like that style, for the most part, I could see you enjoying this experience here. I think what kind of elevates this slightly and sometimes makes up for its cliche points, I'm trying not to sound like I'm already delving into my negatives, but from a technical standpoint, I think Lee Cronin delivers here. The camera work, the editing, and especially the sound design really stick out with me here. There is this aggressive, more gnarly style that fits the tone. Lots of Dutch angles, maybe a little bit overused, and it could get a little excessive, but with the movie, it just kind of has that chaotic feel. It also does something interesting with the focus, which is very Evil Dead Rise, where you have two people in a scene, one closer to the camera, one in the background, and they're both in focus, but then there's still that depth in like the surrounding environment is out of focus. So it almost gives this uncanny spiritual nature kind of look to it at times that I really liked. And like I said, we're about to jump into my negatives here. The movie's pretty cliche, but despite that, I think the ending works really well for this movie. It is definitely very cliche, and it's exactly what you might expect it. But after an over 2-hour long movie of just nothing but depressing, depraved shit happening to this family, I kind of like the more cliche note that it ended off on, and that more positive note. Like, it felt like it was needed for an experience like this, so I don't mind this movie's ending whatsoever. But with that said, let's jump over to my negatives, or the things that I just didn't really like about this movie. And hopefully these negatives don't sound too contradicting to my positives, but I promise just hear me out for a second, because overall I had a decent time with the movie. Just, it was kind of that experience that it feels more superficial than anything long-lasting entertainment-wise. It kind of had that false sense of enjoyment where in the moment you're entertained, having a decent time by all the chaos and everything, but then once it ends, you realize how cliche and derivative that experience really was. And to start, for a movie called The Mummy, it does nothing to feel unique, which is a huge missed opportunity to me. You could literally swap out the demon mummy character with anything from the Insidious franchise or the Conjuring franchise, and the movie would play out the same. Like, the foundation of it doesn't change much. There's nothing really about the mythology, culture, or lore that sets this apart. It doesn't dive into Egyptian history, heritage, or culture in any meaningful way. It almost just kind of uses it as an aesthetic to stay right at that surface level part and just deliver a very standard possession movie, which just felt so frustrating. And I think that's my biggest issue, is it feels like it should be something different, but it never actually is. It never gets there. And even though I was just praising all the Evil Dead inspired influences, again, they're very surface level homages and ripoffs to it. It's definitely inspired, but almost inspired by copying its template almost. I feel like if you just took an average moviegoer and said, here's the new Evil Dead movie, and showed it to them, they wouldn't really question it all that much. The possession, tone, demonic character look feels very much from that style without adding anything new or unique to it. And the runtime to this movie is a huge problem. I feel like there's a solid 90 to 100 minute film in here, but instead it's over 2 hours long and you really feel it. The pacing drags. There's sections of the movie that just feel uninspired. You get long stretches of where the possessed daughter acts creepy, families acting very slowly and kind of stupid by recognizing that this is clearly not just a medical issue, and then that kind of keeps repeating without any mystery, family dynamics, anything to really get behind with this one. And it just feels like the story never really progresses, because it's just not even a story that requires a lot of progressing, if that makes sense. So I feel like for that case, the big shocking moments feel spread out, and instead of consistently being engaging, they're few and far between, and it has a difficulty kind of committing to what it fully wants to be here. It's not scary enough to be a, horror movie in the sense of The Exorcist and Insidious, like that style of horror, but then it doesn't consistently embrace that over-the-top Evil Dead energy, so it feels like a half measure of both and leaving me unsatisfied on both ends here. And it could have made up for it in the story department, but it kind of fails to really do that as well. There's barely a mystery or investigative side to this. The situation just kind of keeps getting worse with the family. There's not a whole lot to really care about with this family besides their daughter going missing and then obviously coming back. Like, that's something you can get behind, but you've seen that story play out a million times when the kid comes back possessed. I mean, we literally saw it in the most recent Exorcism movie, and even that was very derivative. It is that same movie here. And the mystery element here wraps up in one of the laziest way possible. The dad decodes this antagonist's name through Morse code tapping of his daughter's teeth clanking together, which feels a little convenient. I get it. It's fine, but then it just kind of gets worse from there. He somehow connects that name to talking with the detective, and the detective's asking questions, and then he also remembers all these like cards that were sent to the family when their daughter originally went missing. He goes through all the cards and then finds that name on one of the cards with her full legal name, first and last name, and the address. It raises so many questions, like why would this person send that? Like there's no need for this person to send something like that. Why would they include identifiable information? They didn't try to do what the Zodiac did. They literally said their full name and come find me, which I don't even know how the family didn't notice it in the first place. There is literally candy drawn on the card that was left at the crime scene that their daughter had, that they discovered and make a big deal of, but clearly didn't put two and two together when they got that card sent a couple years ago. And why would this antagonist even risk being traced like that? There's no point. You already took the kid. There's no point to it. It was less about the kid and you just needed a vessel. So you really have to take that kid out of it. There's no reason to torture the family in that way. It makes no sense, and it just feels forced, a shortcut to progress the story forward. And then it doubles down with another horror cliche that I feel like is starting to become a bit of a trope. It just kind of reminds me of the movie last year from Together. It has this cliche in it where there's basically a full confession recorded on a VHS tape. It has the motivation, the plan, the showcasing detailed events, and the reasoning behind everything that the detective gets access to, and then forces the family to watch it even though nothing's really revealed in it. It's just your typical demonic possession. Like, detective could have just said, I saw this tape. It was fucked up what they were doing to your daughter, but she's possessed. And you would have got that information quicker, much quicker. It just feels so lazy. It removes any need of discovery and just replaces it with that exposition angle. And even the motivation itself is underdeveloped. They're essentially trying to re-mummify this entity repeatedly. So every couple hundred years, they need to find a new vessel. So they chose this kid, but the movie never stops to explain why this is important or necessary, how it works, what the actual rules and motivations are. At one point, they even say that it doesn't even need to be a young kid, but their body is the best to inhabit the demon. So it just doesn't even feel like personal to this family. It just literally seems like they pulled a name out of the hat. So it just kind of gets rid of any of that fun discovery side because there's not much to really discover here, and instead of adding depth, you're just kind of left feeling hollow with its revelations here. So with that said, I will say that overall, The Mummy is an entertaining but heavily derivative horror movie that delivers some gnarly, crowd-reactive moments, but in the end feels bloated, cliche, and lacking any real identity or lasting impact. So for my rating for this movie, me personally, I just don't see myself ever really rewatching this movie, because if I want this type of experience, I could watch any of the Evil Dead or even the Terrifier movies. If I want that more haunted house vibe, I'll go Insidious, Conjuring, and all those examples are significantly shorter than this movie. But if you're curious, I do think it's kind of worth that rental price, that $1.99.99. If it's on a streaming service you already pay for one day, check it out. It's definitely worth your time. Just keep your expectations very, very limited. You have seen this movie before, I promise you. So you guys have my thoughts here. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much. Please down below, let me know what you thought of 2026 Lee Cronin's The Mummy movie. Did you like it more than me? Did you hate it more than me? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings down below. But that's about it. I appreciate you guys watching, so thanks again. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.